it is in my most humble opinion that sandwiches and salads taste so much better when someone else makes them. And even though I'm fairly confident in my sandwich making ability, I am not at all confident in my salad making ability. Unless the ingredients are already packaged and all I have to do is just dump everything in a bowl and mix it up. Even then, though, it feels like many salads do, sometimes this feels kind of underwhelming. But when you do experience a really good mixed salad, whether at a restaurant or because of your own efforts, it can be a very fulfilling experience. And I've learned that the church is kind of like a good mixed salad. There's a New Testament scholar by the name of Scott McKnight who offers a helpful image in this way. He says there are 3 ways to make and eat a salad. There's the American way, the weird way, and the right way. The American way of eating a salad is to fill your bowl with some iceberg lettuce or some spinach leaves, some tomato slices and olives, maybe some carrots, and then smother it with dressing. Ranch or Thousand Island or Italian or blue cheese or whatever. At that point, the dressing simply overpowers everything else. The weird way is to separate each item in your salad around the plate, then eat them as separate items. People who often do this maybe don't even use dressing. Again, kind of weird. The right way to make and eat a salad is to gather all your ingredients, some spinach, kale, chard, arugula, iceberg lettuce if you must, and chop them into smaller bits. Then cut up some tomatoes, carrots, onions, red pepper, purple cabbage. Add some nuts and dried berries. Sprinkle some Pecorino Romano cheese, and finally drizzle over the salad some really good olive oil, which somehow brings the taste of each item to its fullest. This sounds delicious, especially if someone else were to make it. And surely this is what God intended when God created mixed salad. Now, in the natural order of creation, there is so much mixture and diversity and different ingredients. You can't really get around it. That's what God has done. It's what God still does. We can build our own little like-minded communities, and we certainly do at times, but the world is a mighty diverse place with so many different ingredients. And in many ways, the church perhaps is a reflection of this diverse mixture, bringing different people together, joining unlike people with each other, forming a communion, a community that finds its unity in Jesus Christ. We are meant to be very different, yet somehow together. People have always been learning how to be people together. And a fine example of this is the Jenga tower, or the Tower of Pisa, or whatever you want to call it, this Tower of Babel that we know from Genesis. It's this short story of how humans wish to preserve one common culture, but that conflicts with God's plan to create a new world with many cultures. God wanted people to go out into the world and not stay stuck in their comfortable places. And in the process of people learning to be people, people can often rebel. And if we go back a chapter before our reading today, we learn that Cush was the father of Nimrod, who became this mighty warrior and hunter on the earth. His kingdom was Babel. And the name Nimrod comes from the Hebrew root word for rebel. In American English, it has acquired a further meaning of fool or dummy because, and here is the quite impressive historical background, Bugs Bunny called Elmer Fudd that in a cartoon. So this tower is being built by a violent and powerful warrior who is also building other cities, and his name is connected with the idea of rebelling. He is building an empire. And empire building is what happens when someone or a group of people use military might and economic dominance to crush anything and anyone in the way of their plans. And the story is also very specific about bricks. They used bricks instead of stone to build this tower. You know, stones are hard to build because they are round and often smooth and all different shapes and sizes, and they're hard to stack on top of each other. But with bricks, you can make them the same size, the same shape. You can make bricks to exact specifications of what you want, whatever you're trying to build, like a tower. And this is a technical process of trying to figure out how to make something really strong. They're not just building a treehouse here or a hut. They are building a tower to the heavens. But it isn't just about bricks they're building with. They're also using tar for mortar. Mortar is like cement, helping the bricks stick together. And all of this, bricks and mortar, is about technology. Someone invented something, brick and mortar, which allowed people to make and do things they hadn't been able to do before. And when you have a powerful warrior like Nimrod, who is building an empire and gets his hands on new technology and begins to use it to set himself up as a god, crushing everybody and everything in his path and gaining more and more power and influence, it affected everybody else, or it would affect everybody else. And suddenly, well, you're no longer on the path to having a really good mixed salad. Like people have been doing for a very long time, because of our fascination with heaven, they try to build this tower that reaches to the heavens. But God seems to be out in front of this. God, remember, said earlier in Genesis, do not stay here. Go out, be in the world, be fruitful, and multiply. Well, Nimrod and his family were kind of like, great suggestion, God, but we're going to stay right here, and we're going to do our own thing, and we're going to build cities and this really cool tower, and we're going to make a name for ourselves, because we are the people, we are the world, and we are all that matters. Well, God's not really having any of this. And the reason God isn't having any of this is because even in this ancient story, there is a growing awareness and concern that there is a higher good for humanity than the strong dominating the weak, or the powerful crushing the powerless, or the proud raising themselves up to godlike status. People are always learning to be people. And sometimes power and status and strength really disrupts that learning process. We have tremendous power and ability as humans. We can invent things and build things and dream up things and then make them. It's quite extraordinary, all that we can do as humans, and that ought to be celebrated and enjoyed. I'm not going to lie. I mean, things like HD televisions and iPhones and tablets and Bluetooth technology and Wi-Fi and coffee makers and Dairy Queen blizzards are all amazing things. And I could go on with that list, and so could you. And as humans, we also have the tremendous capacity to use our energies and minds and powers and abilities to further our own purposes through greed and empire building at the expense of those around us. The Tower of Babel is a reminder that we're always building the world in some way. We're doing something with our minds and energies and money and technology. Our power to invent and create can be used for good, yes, to care for each other and for the world. It can also be used in destructive ways to oppress and dehumanize others. And perhaps the Tower of Babel is still happening right now. God said way back then, and God says even now today, there's a right way to make a salad. And maybe you're not doing so well at it. So I'm going to scatter you. I'm going to come down and teach you, and maybe that will change you. It's really all about obedience to God and understanding the bigger picture of God's purposes. And it is a giant reminder that God, when God calls us to something, God really means it. And there are perhaps consequences if we don't respond or follow through. It doesn't mean that those consequences are necessarily bad, but it just may mean that leaving our places of comfort, usually our tightly held, often self-focused perspectives, can lead us into a world that might be uncomfortable, because it might mean being with others who are not like us. But God never promises comfort, that we'll be wealthy and healthy and have nice towers and beautiful homes. But God does promise a relationship with us. God promises to be with us. And you see, friends, all of this is essentially about getting back to Jesus. The table is set even way back then in a story about a tower to get us back on track now. Because there's an aspect of God that says, if you're going off course, I'm gonna come down, I'm gonna enter in, I'm gonna change you. God gave an ancient people a holy nudge toward diversity. Diversity in culture, in thought, in color, in how to build, in how to love. And God gave all of us an even greater holy nudge when Jesus moved into our neighborhoods to show us what unity is all about. All around the globe, despite our differences in language and culture and color and in the ways we live out our faith. This Jesus, he's the one that can bring everyone together. Because he did. And he's still trying to do that. This Jesus helps us immensely in the process of learning to be human, learning to be people together. This Jesus is making the salad the right way. And it sure does taste so much better when he's the one making it. Amen.